Hey guys, I'm your host, Tara A. Devlin, and welcome to this week's episode of Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. The latest volume of Kowabana, Volume 14, is now out. Collecting even more of your favourite stories from the show, you can find tales of creepy monsters, terrifying ghosts, bizarre curses, haunted buildings, and much, much more. That's Kowabana Volume 14, out now. This week, we're looking at some strange, weird, and often terrifying tales from various shrines around Japan. Sometimes you might find something beneficial there, but sometimes, well, the best course of action might be to stay away. First up, a young man on his way home from a funeral gets directions to his grandmother's inn, but for some reason, despite following them exactly, he ends up somewhere entirely different. Somewhere much more dangerous. Find out why in Way Back from the Shrine. This is a story I personally experienced. Around June or July last year, my grandfather passed away, and so we had to go back to my parents' family home in Hokkaido for the funeral and wake. We carried his body to the shrine on the day of the funeral, and that night, my cousins, aunts, uncles, etc. stayed and lit candles and incense for him. Then we brushed our teeth, washed our faces, etc., and got ready to spend the night there. Of course, there were no baths at the shrine, and I really wanted to get the wax out of my hair, so the urge to bathe was even stronger than usual. My grandmother ran an inn about 10 or 20 minutes away, and she had customers, so my parents went back there with her. I decided to call my mother to see if I could have a bath there. I have something of a sixth sense, and when I was a child, I even sometimes saw ghosts. And so, when I called my mother, she got upset. "You're in danger. Yeah, the inn is nearby, but you mustn't walk around at night on the night of a wake. That's dangerous even for normal people," she said. Still, for some reason, I wasn't scared of walking down an unfamiliar street at night. I just really wanted to have a bath, so I asked her how to get there. Looking back on it now, it was pretty weird. Normally, I'd be too scared to walk down a country road at night unless I was with someone else. But for some reason, I just really didn't care. If you walk straight from the shrine, you'll find a river. Cross the bridge there and turn left. Then go straight and you'll find a convenience store. You know how to get here from there, right? My mother said. It wasn't that far, and the car ride only took us about 5 minutes, but still, I was a little worried. "Alright, I should be there soon, but I'll call you again if I get lost, so don't go too far from your phone," I said before hanging up. After that, I told my 2 cousins and aunt who were nearby that I'd be back, and then I told my uncle, who I saw drinking outside, the same thing, and left the shrine. "Okay," everyone replied. Gripping my phone, I started walking. It was dark, and right outside the shrine I found some sort of big old building. It was so creepy that I wanted to turn back, but instead I ran ahead. I wasn't on a main road, so there were streetlights, but it was still pretty dim, and there were no other signs of life around. "You'll be fine," I kept telling myself as I ran. Then I saw the bridge my mother mentioned, so I turned left there. If I kept going straight, then I'd find the convenience store, so I started running. But even after running for a while, I couldn't find any convenience store. I think I ran for 10 minutes or so, and then I got a call from my mother. "Where are you? Are you lost?" "You said turn at the bridge, right? I'm running right now," I replied. "It shouldn't be taking you this long. Are you sure you didn't go the wrong way?" she said. I think I'll just go a little further," I said after thinking it over. "I'll call you back." Then I hung up. Looking back on it, it really was strange. If it only took 5 minutes by car, then it wasn't that far away, and I should have been able to easily reach it on foot. And the convenience store should have only been about 5 minutes on foot from the bridge. But at the time, I was convinced I was going the right way. I didn't think that I'd taken a wrong turn somewhere. As I ran a little further, I saw a small shrine on the right-hand side of the path. Once I passed that, I didn't see any cars. We were in the countryside of Hokkaido, and sure, there weren't that many cars on the road, but this was a 2-lane highway, and I'd still seen a few cars here and there up until that point. But once I passed that shrine, there wasn't a single car. It really was weird. As I kept running, I came across a bridge. Seemed there was a river beneath it, and I could hear the sound of laughter mixed in with the running water. It was almost like a child laughing as they played under the bridge. But it was after midnight. There was no way. Crap, I thought, and then I took off running as fast as I could back down the path I came. As I was running back, I realized I'd already run for about 5 kilometers. Before turning back, I didn't feel tired at all, and it felt like I'd only been running for maybe 15 minutes or so. But it had actually been much, much longer than that, and I didn't realize until I looked at my phone. Crap, I thought again. And then I tried calling my cousins, my brother, and my mother, but not a single person picked up. I tried calling my mother again, and when I finally thought she answered, I heard a groaning noise coming from the phone, and then it hung up. Thinking the reception must be bad, I kept running. And then, once I finally passed that same shrine again, finally the call got through. "Why didn't you pick up? I was terrified. Answer the phone, please. If the reception's bad, then at least try to call me back." I got angry when she answered. Huh? The phone never rang. I was here in front of it the whole time. There's nothing in the call history either. The only call I got was this one just now. A chill ran down my spine. So then, who answered just before? And why was there no history of all the calls I made? I grew anxious over various things and started running even faster. "Look, just get the car, please. I'm on the highway." After running for around half an hour, I finally found my mother and grandmother. "Where on earth did you go? I told you to turn right at the bridge, didn't I?" My mother said. But even looking back on it now, she most definitely told me to turn left. I explained everything to my mother, and she said, "You ran towards that mountain. You ran a whole 5 kilometers from the bridge and you didn't notice anything on the way. There are no houses. You must have been summoned." Maybe I really was, but I wish she didn't say it so casually. At any rate, by the time I got in the bath, I was terrified, and I had them drive me back to the shrine. "Oh? When did you leave?" my aunt said. Seemed neither my cousins, aunt, or uncle knew anything about me going. I most definitely told them though. They even replied. But according to them, I just suddenly disappeared at some point. Oh, and my call attempts didn't show up in the histories of my brother and cousin's phones either. I still get chills when I think about what might have happened if I didn't turn back. When my mother later mentioned how that's how people tend to disappear when they're spirited away, I was even more horrified. A young man enjoys camping on the weekends, but the mountain he picks for this particular trip ensures it's one he won't ever forget. Find out why in Kami-sama on the Mountain. When I was in university, I used to enjoy camping alone on weekends. They were simple trips where I'd sleep in the mountains or fields from Friday to Sunday. I didn't have any friends, so I spent my time getting lost in nature. One time, I was heading towards Gifu without a map and without really knowing where I was going. I found a mountain that looked great for camping on the way, so I decided to spend my time there. After dinner, I was lying in my tent reading some comics when suddenly the front zipper opened. Huh? Is it a caretaker? Or did someone call the police? I thought, sitting up. But there I saw a regular old man sticking his head into the tent. "Oh, are you on a trip?" he asked. I was so surprised and scared that I couldn't answer. I just nodded. Then the old man left without a word. I was about 1 kilometer or so from any houses, so I didn't expect to see anyone up there. At first, I thought maybe it was a ghost, but he really did look like a normal person. Thinking that maybe he was some sort of pervert, or maybe even a thief, I found that I couldn't get to sleep. What should I do? I wondered. And then the tent zipper opened again, and another old man appeared. "Oh, are you on a trip?" he asked. I nodded, and again he left. The entire situation didn't feel right. This is dangerous, I thought, so I decided to pack the tent up and go. But it was dark outside with no moonlight, and there were 2 weirdos wandering around in the darkness. Maybe they're going to stab me, I thought, scared. And after worrying about it for around 30 minutes, I decided I really should go. Holding my torch so I could easily bash them with it if needs be, I nervously looked around, but I was all alone. Now's my chance, I thought, and I started packing up my tent as fast as I could. Then, those 2 men appeared again. "Are you going? But it's still dark," they said as I rushed to put the tent away. "Yes, something came up," I said, strapping my bags to my bike. I then turned my torch towards them, but then I realized something was wrong with the light. It seemed to stop halfway. What the hell? I looked behind the 2 men, and there appeared to be something around 4 meters tall and in black clothing, leaning over and moving the 2 men. Behind its droopy face, its eyes glistened, and its mouth opened and closed as it spoke. Terrified and thinking my life was about to be over, I jumped on my bike and sped away from there as fast as I could. When I reached the shrine at the bottom of the mountain, I put my tent up in a spot where I wouldn't be in the way, and then spent the rest of the night there. The next morning, some noise woke me up. I opened the zipper and looked outside, afraid that the monster had chased me all the way down here, but instead, I saw the chief priest. "You can't put your tent here," he yelled at me. I told him everything that had gone down on the mountain. A mountain Kami-sama lives up there, so there's nothing you can do about that. You're lucky you got to see him. I've never run into him myself, but I've heard from others who have," he said, but there was a hint of irritation in his tone. "It doesn't look like any harm has come to you, so you should go home now," he continued. But me being harmed or unharmed wasn't exactly the problem. How could they just let that thing continue living up there? It doesn't matter how you look at it. The existence of that Kami-sama is just too weird. A cursed mountain has a surprising reason behind it. But does that mean the local Kami-sama has it out for the villagers? Or is there something else going on? Find out in Reason for the Shrine. I don't know if this is a scary story exactly, but my family home is in a town surrounded by mountains, and on the biggest mountain you can find a shrine. Now, I don't remember the exact name of the Kami-sama that's venerated there, but it's a woman by the name of Yatsu something Bime. According to legend, this Kami-sama originally protected not just that mountain, but the surrounding areas as well. At first, she got on rather well with the people who moved to that area. She granted them the blessings of the mountain, and in return, they worshipped her. You could say that they had a favourable relationship. But then one day, she suddenly started to curse those who stepped foot on the mountain. No matter what the villagers said or did, she wouldn't listen to them. They were unsure of what to do, but then a man claiming to be a messenger of that Kami-sama appeared. "You people belong to a bloodline that opposes my own," the man said, speaking as though he was the Kami-sama herself. "The battle between our factions has reached a head, and so the order has come down that I must respond in kind. However, we have built a good relationship over the years, and I do not wish to bring you further harm. I will seek counsel and beg them to stop this, so please, worry no more." And after that, when the villagers visited the mountain, they were no longer cursed. However, as the years went on, nobody ever saw that Kami-sama on the mountain again. The villagers thought that she must still be in discussions with the others, and because she would no doubt be tired upon her return, they built a shrine for her to rest in whenever she came back. A group of friends head to a shrine for a test of courage during the holidays, but none of them are ready for what they find there. What's really going on? Find out in Shrine on the Cape. During the summer holidays 2 years ago, I went to the beach with 3 of my friends. While we were there, one of them suggested that we should do a test of courage that night. "Yeah, sure," we all agreed. "All right, then let's head to the Cape," he said. That area was a 30-minute drive away, so we'd have to go there by car. We'd had a few beers and were in high spirits, however, so it was no big deal. We happily and noisily arrived at the Cape, where there was a shrine. It's not like I can see ghosts, so I'm not scared or anything. We laughed, but then one of my friends suddenly froze. "Oh crap, I see something," he said. I didn't believe in ghosts at all, so I was like, yeah, sure you can. But he pointed to something ahead, and it was true. Something was moving up there, like it was swaying side to side. I was a coward, so I was about to say that I didn't feel like going, but then suddenly someone screamed, "Let's get out of here!" This time, we heard screaming coming from the rear of the shrine. We all took off running in surprise, got in the car, and then got the hell out of there. Oh man, that was crazy! We chatted about what happened in the car on the way back. "Something grabbed my shoulder as we were running," one friend said. "My legs felt really heavy," said another. "Really?" I replied. By that point, I was terrified. Before you guys yelled to get out of there, I was about to say that I think we should go home. Whatever it was, I could see through it. It was terrifying. "Huh? I didn't hear anyone say that," one of my friends replied. "Eh? But we all ran at the same time. I thought it was because of whoever screamed." "I saw that thing in the distance suddenly get bigger and then disappear. That's why I ran," one friend said. "I saw a girl next to the shrine," said another. Everyone had different answers as to why they ran, but in the end, we never reached a definitive answer. And so, our summer holidays ended with sunburn and some interesting memories. The Kami-sama in this next story has a rather unique interest, and, it seems, will go to rather drastic lengths to get what they want. Find out why in Miraculous Kami-sama. Around this time last year, I got married, and now I live in an apartment with my wife near her parents' home. It's in a rural district quite some distance from my family home, and our town has a single highway that basically cuts through it and splits it into the riverside and the mountainside. Our apartment and my wife's parents' house are on the riverside, so I know that area pretty well, but I've never once crossed the highway to check out the mountainside. I heard there's an area there to farm sweet fish that is a popular tourist spot, but I've never been there myself. Anyway, this happened to me around February of this year. My company is in the city, and at best, it takes me about 40 minutes to get home. Work starts around midday and continues until 9 p.m. But when we have deadlines, well, sometimes I have to work until 2 or 3 a.m. On the way back, I have to follow the river, and on some days, it's incredibly foggy. So, one Friday, I was driving home around 1 a.m. I had the next day off, but the drive back was incredibly foggy. I was used to fog, but I'd never seen it this bad before. Geez, if I keep driving this slowly, it's going to take me forever to get back, I muttered to myself. I was driving only 14 or 15 kilometers an hour, relying on the faintly visible center line on the road. I couldn't see the lights of any other cars. On the way, I passed the bright orange lights of a familiar bridge. A little further down the road, there would be a curve to the left, and then I would enter town. After that, the fog should dissipate and I'd be able to drive under the lights of the convenience store, pachinko parlors, and so on. Or so I thought. But then suddenly, I heard a bang. It was like the car had driven up onto something. Crap! Did I drive up onto the gutter? Panicking, I slammed on the brakes and the car shook like it was driving over gravel. I looked around, unsure of what was going on, but I couldn't see anything other than the thick fog, I got out of the car with my torch and couldn't believe my eyes. This wasn't the road I'd just been driving on. I mean, it wasn't even a road. Beneath my feet was just gravel and stone paving. Where on earth was I? After looking around, it seemed I was at a shrine. I shone my light around and I could read the name something something shrine. I called my wife and told her where I was. "Why on earth are you there?" Oh, thank God, she knew where I was. "I got lost and I can't get back. Can you come get me?" I asked. Apparently, I was on the mountainside of the city that I mentioned before. I sat down on the stone steps near the shrine gate to wait for my wife. The fog had lifted a little, but it was still pitch black. In the distance, I could see the lights of the convenience store and pachinko parlor. It appeared that I'd somehow skipped right over town and ended up at this shrine instead. Before long, I saw car headlights at the bottom of the stairs. A figure came up the stairs holding a torch after presumably seeing my own lights. It was no doubt my wife. I started heading down. There were about 100 steps in all, and I met my wife on the way down, and we went back to the cars together. We then checked the shrine grounds together. Judging by the layout, there was undoubtedly a road we could use to get out. We then found one, but the iron gate was padlocked and we couldn't get out that way. I had the next day off, so with no other choice, I moved the car so it wasn't in the way and went back to my wife's car to go home. She continually questioned me on the way home about how I got there, but I told her that I was just tired from work and I honestly didn't know. The next morning, I got my father-in-law, who was a city councillor, to call the chief priest and ask him to please open the iron gate. When I got there, the priest was wearing sweats. "Oh my, you must have had a rough night, huh?" he said when he saw me. I greeted him, wondering why he wasn't upset at being dragged out like this. But then I asked him the question that had been lingering in my mind. "Does this often happen here?" He said that this had actually happened 2 or 3 times in the past. The Kami-sama venerated at that shrine was the god of alcohol, so apparently they liked to summon drunks. Cars were rare, but apparently drunk people often suddenly found themselves on the shrine grounds. Okay, but I wasn't drunk, I thought. But then the priest asked me a question. "Do you have alcohol in the car?" Come to think of it, I still had some sake and beer left in the car from the previous end-of-year party that I hadn't yet taken out. I'm not a drinker, so I never took them out. Perhaps it was divine power. Our Kami-san works in miraculous ways, the priest said, forcibly wrapping the story up. Before I left, I handed the alcohol in my car to the priest and asked him to please dedicate it to the Kami-sama. 2 friends looking for Seimei Shrine in Kyoto struggled to find it, but it turns out there might be an interesting reason for that. Find out why in Seimei Shrine. This happened when I visited Seimei Shrine in Kyoto. Nowadays, Abe no Seimei is still pretty famous, and apparently lots of tourists visit this shrine. But about 10 years ago, it wasn't that well known, and hardly any people ever went there. I only learnt of it because my friend told me about it. We decided to check it out, but at the time it wasn't in any guidebooks or anything, so we had to rely on my friend's memories to get there. We took the bus and found ourselves in a very Kyoto-like business area. There didn't appear to be any shrines around. At this point, I started to doubt it was even real. Are you sure it's around here? You're not remembering wrong? But my friend said it was straight ahead, so we kept walking. But no matter how far we went, we couldn't find the shrine. We ended up at Ichijo Modoribashi Bridge, which meant we'd gone way too far, so we turned around and went back the way we came. But still, we didn't find the shrine, and we ended up back at the bus stop where we got off. "Are you sure you didn't get the place wrong?" I asked, but my friend said this was definitely it. There was a single road between the buildings and the river, and there was a side path you had to take from that road. Secretly, I was still doubtful, but we started walking again. Slowly, looking at everything on the building's side. But again, we ended up at the bridge, and when we turned around, we once again reached the bus stop. We must have done this like 3 or 4 times. By this point, I really didn't believe the shrine was anywhere near us. "Look, you must have made a mistake, and it would be weird to find a shrine in a place like this anyway," I said as we walked. "It's because you don't believe that it's here that we can't find it," my friend replied. Well, maybe, I thought. I considered it for a moment and then looked around. Yeah, that might be right. And there, right in front of us, was the shrine gate to Seimei Shrine. My entire body felt like it had been doused in cold water. "I'm sorry for saying something so rude," I said before the shrine gate. I offered some money, apologized again, then I apologized to my friend, and then we dragged ourselves home. "I think he was making fun of you because you didn't believe the shrine was there," my friend said. I went there several times after that, but I was always easily able to find it. The grounds are large, the walls are different from the buildings, and there's even a signpost marking that it's there. And I was with someone else. There was no reason that we shouldn't have been able to see it, so it's strange that we couldn't. Maybe the Kami-sama really was messing with me. A child's secret hideout seems to harbour another far more mystical secret, and it's not until many, many years later that they uncover what's really going on. Find out in Memories of Spiriting Away. I'd like to tell you about something strange that happened to me quite some time ago when I was a child. When I was around 5, I used to help my older brother when he did work on the farm. About 10 or 20 meters from the fields, there were these piles of large rocks with an entrance just big enough for a child to enter. Inside was unexpectedly large, and so we used to play there like it was our secret base. One day, we were playing there when my brother said he was going to get some snacks. I waited there alone after he left, but he was taking an awfully long time to return. It felt like 20 or 30 minutes had passed. When I crawled out of the secret base, everything outside felt weird. That area outside the rocks was supposed to be grassy, but instead, I was standing on sand. Confused, I looked around, and there was a shrine or something right in front of me, with stone paving around it. Nearby, there were large statues of cows and horses, and lots of people standing around. But they were all speaking in the Kansai dialect, which I didn't understand at the time, so I was so scared that I burst into tears. Those standing nearby said something to me, but again, I couldn't understand it. I was so scared that I dove back into the hole I'd crawled out of. Then, once I reached the end, I found myself standing on grass. My clothes were covered in mud, and when I got home, my mother yelled at me. When I told my brother what happened, he said I was standing on the grass and crying. I avoided going back to the secret base for a while after that, but when I was in the first grade, I decided to visit it again. The entrance felt smaller than the last time I was there, and when I tried to go inside, a small hand reached out for me. I ran to tell some neighbors and there was a big fuss, but in the end, they didn't find anyone inside. They moved all the stones, but still didn't find anything. And again, my parents yelled at me. The only thing they found there was about 10 sparkling objects of unknown origin. Now, around 30 years later, I finally know what those sparkling things were. I married a man from the Kansai area, so I moved there from Kanto. I took my daughter to visit a shrine, and when we were there, I saw her putting some little crystal toys she found from a claw machine into a hole on the shrine grounds. When I came back to visit my parents, I found those same shining toys in our family's treasure box. The memories of my childhood were connected to reality, and it became clear that I had transcended time and space. Was this some version of being spirited away? What would have happened if I didn't run away, but instead stayed at that shrine? It's a little scary to think of now, but it feels like this strange experience isn't over yet. Sticking with the Kamikakushi theme, a local legend tells of a shrine nobody should visit because if they do, they'll be spirited away. A young couple decide to ignore those warnings and find out firsthand why they exist. Can they make their way back out? Find out in Kamikakushi Forest. In a certain village, a strange legend is passed down. It's said that the old shrine located deep in the village has the power to spirit people away. This is when the kami or yokai take you to a different world. And so, people in the village never went near that shrine for fear that they might be spirited away. But one day, a young couple from outside the village came to visit. They were interested in the legend of the shrine, and they wanted to check it out, regardless of how dangerous it might be. The villagers warned them not to go near the shrine, but the young couple ignored them and made their way over. The mountain path leading to the shrine was dark and steep. They fumbled their way up, and then finally arrived at the shrine. The shrine had fallen into ruin, and few traces of the past remained. The couple took a photo to remember their visit, and then decided to go home. But at that moment, suddenly, a strong breeze kicked up, and the pair found themselves in darkness. Next thing they knew, they were standing somewhere they didn't recognize. They were deep in the forest behind the shrine. The pair realized they had been spirited away, and they trembled in fear. They desperately tried to return to where they came from, but they had no idea where they were, and instead found themselves even more lost. As night fell, the forest grew darker and darker. The couple felt like they were being sucked even further into the dark forest. But then, they ran into some strange creatures they'd never seen before. These creatures grabbed them and tried to take them back to their world. The couple held onto each other's hands and desperately struggled against the creatures. Somehow, they were able to break free and escape. But still, they were unable to leave the dark forest, and they had no idea what to do. But then, suddenly, they heard a small voice in the distance. It sounded like it was praying. The couple started walking towards it. Finally, they found themselves at a small pond near the shrine. In that pond, they saw the beautiful reflection of the moon above. Guided by that light, the couple found themselves back at the shrine, and once they got there, they were able to safely return to their own world. They were so happy to be back that they ran to the village to inform the villagers of what happened. Hearing of their experience being spirited away, the villagers were both surprised and thankful that they were safely able to return. As such, they decided to clean the shrine and return it to its former glory and thanks. And after that, the villagers took such good care of the shrine that nobody was spirited away again, and the villagers were able to live in peace. This story is still passed down in that village today. Finally this week, a young girl digs up an old fox mask on her school grounds and decides to take it home. But when she later decides it should probably be taken to a shrine for safekeeping, she has a strange encounter that will make her question her choice. Find out why in The Earthenware Fox. When I was in elementary school, I was digging in the school grounds one day when I found an earthenware fox. It was pure white and kind of looked like a fox mask, and there were other things in the ground there too. There was stuff like the 7 gods of fortune, lucky mallets, and other talismans as well. At the time, I was just a school kid, so I was like, this is all treasure, and freely took what I wanted. There was only one fox mask, and because I personally found it, I refused to let go of it. The other kids didn't like it though, and said that its eyes were scary, so I happily took it home with me. Our teacher, who watched us from nearby, didn't say anything either. I put it in my desk drawer for safekeeping, and kind of forgot about it for a while. But when I was in junior high, I saw a program on TV about memorial services for dolls. Maybe I should take that fox to a shrine as well, I started to think. Being that it was originally buried in a field, I decided to ask the grown-ups what exactly it was, but they didn't know either. But because it was in the ground, I decided that either way, it should probably be taken back to a shrine. Right around that time, our family was planning a trip to Kyoto. I thought that maybe an Inari shrine would be a good place for it, and if so, then the head Fushimi Inari shrine would be best. So I brought that fox with me on our trip. I was sad to part ways with it, but this was too good of an opportunity to pass up, and I was really looking forward to visiting the shrine too. On the day of our trip, I wrapped the box carefully so it wouldn't break, and then put it in my bag. Once on the bullet train, I fell fast asleep. In my dreams, I saw a young man with brown hair. Just like the waking world, I was on the bullet train, but we were the only 2 passengers on board, and he was sitting opposite me. The young man was wearing jeans and a white t-shirt, and on his arm he wore a purple wristband. He had brown hair and pale skin, and this brown-haired young man looked at me with a troubled expression on his face. "Look, I don't mind you taking it to a shrine, but please don't go to Fushimi. If someone suddenly wanted to take you to meet someone super important without warning, well, you'd be a little troubled too, right? I'd like to stay in my hometown. I can relax there, you know? Come on, work with me here." That purple wristband he was wearing, it had been around that fox in my desk drawer all those years so that it didn't break. When we arrived in Kyoto, we visited the Fushimi Inari Shrine, but I decided not to leave the fox with them. "So, I have this fox, but what do you think I should do with it?" I asked someone from the shrine. "You should take it to your local Inari shrine or nearest local deity and leave it with them," they said. And so, once we got back home, I decided to take it to our local Inari shrine. The day before I went there, the same day we left Kyoto, I dreamt about that young man with the brown hair again. "Thank you so much. Here, you can have this back now," he said, handing me the purple wristband. The next day, I safely delivered the fox to the shrine. A massive thank you and shout out to this week's Kami tier members, Just Sawn and Emerald. It's thanks to your support, along with everyone else, that I'm able to keep doing this show, so thank you very much. Don't forget to check out Kowabana Volume 14, out on Amazon right now, and check out our merchandise store at kowabana.store. And if you'd like to chat about this week's stories, come and join us in the Kowabana Discord. You can find that link in the description or on kowabana.net. You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/TaraADevlin for exclusive bonus stories and extras, or our YouTube channel at youtube.com/KowabanaJapan for all sorts of Japanese horror you won't find anywhere else. Thanks guys, stay safe, and I'll see you again next time for even more Kowabana. True Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Want even more scary stories? Head over to kowabana.net for new translations every week. You can also join our Patreon for exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Head over to kowabana.net now.